Howdy folks. Well, this is my Jockey box. It's, I like to get my beer out here on the deck in the summertime. It's an old-fashioned, made by Cornelius keg, thing from the 60s or whatever. You put a block of ice inside, and it cools the beer as it runs through the chill plate. But I have had a world of trouble. This thing is designed for soda, and I'm using it for beer. And I had a world of trouble all summer with it. And I just figured out, once I figured out the solution to the problem. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you, if you got one of these old soda dispensers, how to make it so that you can pour beer out of it with no problem. So here, let me, first off, let me show you, this is the one I already fixed. Working beauty. Here's the one that I haven't fixed yet. I'm about to fix for you, so you can watch. See, it's coming out a little bit, but it's really slow, and it gets blocked up pretty quick. And it'll actually stop working altogether generally. So first we're going to take the lid off. Set it off to the side. And there's my block of ice. And what happens is the beer comes out of the keg here. I don't have any pressure on it. I keg condition my beer. Comes out the out through this tube, goes into that chill plate underneath the ice, goes through the chill plate, and then comes back out these tubes over here, then comes out through the spigot. And what we need to do is, and this is why it's such a pain in the butt, first you got to take this hose off here. And these hoses they're really, really stiff. You can see there's a lot of pressure in there. The beer's kind of spitting everywhere because the problem is actually inside the faucet, not in the lines or in the chill plate or anything like that. The problem is everything's fine until it gets up to where the beer comes to the faucet. And these hoses are really stiff. And so like I said, these are really stiff hoses, and this little connection here is plastic, which means it's real easy to cross thread when it's not lined up right. Now that's pretty easy. I usually, if it's a little tighter, you can hit that with a wrench. And then there's a little collar, one on each side. And if they're good and tight, you could probably need to use, if you don't have the right tool, which I don't, I've used a pipe wrench. And got around that with a pipe wrench. I was able to loosen it up that way. Unfortunately, to do that, you kind of have to work from one side, from the outside, work your way in. I've got this on there pretty loose right now, so I can use it with two hands. I can undo it. So now let's see, I got it fairly loose, and I can just kind of unscrew it by hand. You want to make sure you don't lose any of these parts. All right, so there's the collar for the inside, and the faucet comes right out. I'm going to throw the lid back on there to keep it chilled. I freeze those blocks of ice in my freezer in the basement. It takes about 2 days for them to freeze, and it takes them about 2 days to thaw in the Jockey box. Alright, so then you take this, this washer goes on the outside, the steel washer goes on the outside. And then this is actually the toughest part to do by hand. This little collar here, I've actually had to put this into a vise and hit this with a wrench more than once. And this all actually comes apart. You can take this collar off and this will come right out. This little screw here comes out. There's a spring inside. That's what causes this to that's what causes it to spring back. If you tighten this little ring here too tight, it'll actually stay in place, so, depending on your preference. When you take that screw out, there's two little pieces of metal here that go on either side of that spring in there. And then this little piece of plastic here, it actually controls the flow, goes all the way through to the front and both these parts tie into that. Our problem though is right here. This is designed for soda, or pop if you're where I live, and the opening is too narrow around this. Gets covered in sediment from the bottom of my keg. And now this releases the carbonation out of your soda. Kind of makes it nice and foamy for you. And if you're gonna do soda, or if you want to do a shandy where you have, like, you know, a lemonade on one side and a beer on the other, you might want to hold on to this. Don't lose it, but it's definitely a problem for beer, because it causes this here to be too constricted. Alright, so this goes inside the collar, or inside that metal piece. This little groove I usually try to have go to the bottom, so I line that up with the bottom of the faucet. So you can see that the metal is notched and the plastic is notched. You want those to line up so that it seals properly. And tighten it up a little bit, but don't tighten it too far, because what you want to do, get your little elbow and get that in there. Kind of have an idea of which direction you want that elbow pointing. That's about the angle I want it at. And then you actually have to take this elbow back out, because it won't fit through the box, the body of the jockey box will fit in there. Take the faucet, put the metal washer on the outside. Take the plastic collar goes on the inside. Tighten it up. And I don't recommend tightening too much. Hand tight is good enough for both the metal collar and the plastic one. I mean, you want it tight, but you over tighten it, and then you're using your wrenches to get it apart again. I really don't like putting this in a vise. Makes me a little nervous. And then you put the elbow back on. Alright, now I get everything tightened up except for the hose. The biggest problem is trying to not cross it and put it back together. Now, with any luck, we won't have any leaks. Alright, so we hook the beer back up. Hook the keg back up. I'm not seeing any leaks in here. With any luck, this should pour beautifully now. Look there. Nice, smooth flow. Pain in my butt. Took me over a month to figure it out. Took it apart and put it back together 3 times before I thought about that. More than that. We're going to pretend like it was only 3. Cheers.